So that's a good reminder. If you have a question or if you want to make a comment, please just unmute your microphone and jump right in. I know that's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's a really good life skill, because one thing we know from COVID is that we're going to be on Zoom or some other similar platform well into the future. One of my nieces, she's 25, and she has never even sat in the same room as her fellow employees, and she's been there forever. Well, no, not forever, for a year and a half, but never met anybody in person, only on Zoom. This is week 4. That's pretty clear by now. Here's what we're doing. I have a few FYIs. I have a chapter 2 discussion, and I was originally going to assign concepts to some groups, but that didn't end up happening. So I am going to talk about the concepts, and these are on your deliverable under today. And so after that, we're going to watch a video, discuss it very briefly. A lot of people will like it because I remember on that initial discussion board that we did, it seems like about half of the people put pictures of dogs on there, or just under half. And we're looking at a business that cares for dogs. So that will be our video. And then we'll have a group check-in. We do have a reading week during a reading quiz during class Wednesday. So remember that on the bottom of our deliverable, there's a list of the terms I'd like you to review for the quiz. And the reason I put them down there is because there are actually 3 times as many terms that we're covering in the 75% of chapter 1 and the full chapter 2. And I want you to focus on what's going to be on the quiz. And I do that throughout the semester. I do that for the midterm. I do that for the final, so that you're using your time to the best of your ability. And that's how it is for all of us. Just like you said, your 3 words in the chat, people are tired. It's busy. Life is busy, and it doesn't seem to slow down between now and Thanksgiving. Next Friday is chapter 3. So this is me making an appeal to you. And I know I don't have to even do it out loud, because for the deliverable 1, about 20% of people turned it in early. So it's not due till Friday night. But if you want to turn it in early, that could be helpful to me. I just want to get a head start on grading, because over the Labor Day weekend, I ended up putting in a lot of time, which is my job. That's not me making anything, no complaints. I set this class up to have these deliverables in part so I can get to know what you're thinking, what makes you tick, what is working for you as a learner, what you like, what you don't like, feedback on our topics. So I developed the deliverable with a lot of intention, and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, if it's convenient, I would love to have a few early so that I can start the grading process on Thursday, a day that I don't teach. Somebody put something in the chat. Do you want to?
Extra credit if we do?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be giving extra credit, Anthony, but that's a darn good question. And you know what else? I will be offering extra credit this semester here and there. So look for that. Yeah, it's more like if you're thinking you're going to do it anyway, it would be great. But if not, I'll do whatever it is I have to do. So what is that, Vanessa, if you don't mind?
Oh, I just said perfect. I'm glad you're offering extra credit. I appreciate that.
You better. You can be like the voice in on my shoulder. I talked about this last Wednesday, and this won't be the last time I mention it, because of all the things we do in the Franke College of Business to support our students. This is the biggest event, and I would argue the most beneficial, because people are landing jobs that they really like and stay at. I'm on LinkedIn, and I like to go, and LinkedIn tells you that somebody's having a 3-year work anniversary, somebody's having a 2-year work anniversary. So I get to hear what people are doing, or at least see on LinkedIn. And a lot of these jobs were acquired by attending the career fair. So there you go. It's available on Handshake. And I already asked Tyler about this at the beginning of class. What are some of the best places to work? Is there anybody else who has any thoughts or comments? Because I'm sure Tyler, both of her parents work at one of the top 100, but I'm sure she's not the only one who is close with somebody who works on that list. Would somebody else be willing to unmute and jump in with a comment on, you think the list is interesting, bogus?
We're doing the Cheesecake Factory, and I actually noticed that it was a cheesecake factory that's located out of California. So I'm almost wondering if it is store specific.
Well, I know that the Cheesecake Factory originated in California, is my understanding, maybe even in
Right.
Hollywood. So it could just be that that's where their address is.
Okay.
I can't imagine it's for a store, because top 100 companies to work for in the United States, one store is not going to make that list.
Okay.
That's
right.
That's deductive reasoning, but I'm not 100% sure. Do you know where the city is, Vanessa?
I can tell you.
I think my first one that I went to was in Hollywood. I might just move along, so if you don't mind putting it in the chat, I'd be very curious.
Okay.
All right. So what is the external environment when we're talking about business and businesses in general? We are talking about the things that are outside of our walls. So we're not talking about our vice president team. We're not talking about our strategic plan. We're talking about things like our competitors. We're talking about the economy. We're talking also about politics. We're talking about resources and the natural environment as well. So everything that is outside, I would like for you to know that the external environment is what that is. And I'm looking right here on the list of terms on our deliverable, and I have the environment. So it's not being called the external or internal, but under environment, I have general, task, organizational, and internal. So we will talk a little bit more about what those mean. So the general environment are things that affect my business directly. Or indirectly, sorry. So let's think about this for a minute. Let's say that our organization is NAU. So if we're looking at something like a task environment, that's something that's definitely affecting our overall mission. Does anybody have any ideas that you could unmute and say, what do you think might be part of the task environment for Northern Arizona University? What do you think about the high cost of housing? Does that affect NAU's basic operations and performance? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that affects the general environment. How about the roads that get the vehicles to NAU? Like, just an FYI, if you take Interstate 17 or I-40 and you get off right by NAU to go onto campus, coming up, there's going to be a really huge slowdown, and you want to avoid that area altogether if you can, because they're going to take it from 2 lanes to 1 lane right there by the turnoff to NAU. So I would say that that is part of the task environment, because it definitely influences our operations. If I can't get to class on time because the roads outside of my organization are under construction all day, every day, 365 days a year, then this could be part of the environment that affects my ability to do work. So other things that would be part of the task environment would be NAU would have students. NAU's task environment would also include competitors. We have several online competitors in Flagstaff. We have Coconino Community College. We have College America. These are all competitors. And then suppliers, people who provide all the food for NAU, for Sodexo. This is part of our task environment, and the labor market itself. This includes people who could potentially be hired and work on campus. Like we have so many in the College of Business. We have people who we're always looking to hire who can work on different aspects of our building, like maintenance and cleaning. So one of the things that we see with the task environment, like I talk about Flagstaff a lot because we're all here pretty much. The labor market is really a big deal, and we are going to see over the next 20 years our labor market constricting. The price of housing is so high in Flagstaff, it's awful. And the people who can do the service jobs that we really need, including professors, we can't really, we have a difficult time hiring professors from out of the area because the real estate costs are so high. So all of this is part of the task environment, the labor market. And then the internal environment, that's just everything that's happening within the walls of our organization. And then the general environment is this thing that's more out there, like the trend to doing more classes online. You noticed that NAU is doing more classes online this semester than they have ever done, the Franke College of Business specifically, ever done in history. And that's a part of the general environment because people have discovered they like to have that flexibility. So they are preferring those types of classes. And we'll see what it looks like in a year from now. Maybe people will want to come back into the classroom, but right now we're seeing things that are outside of the walls of the Franke College of Business.
It would be nice if they did a hybrid where you taught online as well as.
There
like,
are some of those.
Are they? Okay.
And I might ask that on a future deliverable if people would want to do some hybrid, even though this is a fully in-person class. I might pose that question coming up. But yeah, we have a lot of things, legal and political. Like if you watch I know a lot of people are from California. If you watch the politics, we have a recall election tomorrow of the governor, only second time in California history. But Gavin Newsom is reportedly being recalled because of his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. But if you look at the business climate in California and you look at all the dozens upon dozens of organizations that are fleeing California because of the high cost of doing business, especially taxes, and coming to states like Arizona and Texas, then you'll see how the general environment actually plays a really big role on our organization's environment. Excuse me, I'm going to mute for just a second. All right, so the organizational, and so I want to go back real quick. So on the quiz this Wednesday, I do ask you specifically a question about the economic environment and another question about the legal political dimension. So I'd like you to know all these, sure I would, but I would like you to especially know that the legal political can cover things like taxes, which I just mentioned, but also regulations. We have a lot of federal regulations like OSHA, but we also have a lot of state regulations that vary from state to state. So these are all part of the general environment, but the legal political system has a really big effect on how we do business and how much profit we make or don't make. And then the economic dimension. So who would be willing to unmute and talk about what they see as a big driving factor in workplaces right now that has to do with the economy?
Your starting wage, or how much benefits you're going to be getting? Is that what you're asking, or is it different?
The starting wage is huge, Reese. Right now, well, in Flagstaff, we have $15 an hour minimum wage, but other parts of the state, people would like to work there, but they're demanding more money. That's one of the biggest things that employers are seeing. So we have that. We also have this huge glut, or I say glut, that's not the right word. We have a huge hole to fill where people want to hire good people and they can't find anybody. Part of that is the wage. Part of that is the economic stimulus that we've been seeing in the past, where some people, including some friends of mine, are making $400 a week to not work and collect the federal benefits related to COVID. So these would fall under the economic part of the general environment. So please know those two. If you're going to spend a little bit more time between now and Wednesday to review, look at those two, although these are all very, very important. Like if you look at the people in Louisiana that were hit super hard by the Category 4 hurricane 2 weeks ago, then you'll see the natural environment making it impossible for many of them to even do business right now. So it is kind of nice to not have too many natural disasters, but it's been quite a year around the world. So an organizational ecosystem, this is, so if we use NAU for an example again, and that makes sense for this example, it's formed by the interaction with others. So who do you think the others might be that form the organizational ecosystem for NAU? How about you, Cherie? Do you mind unmuting and saying, who do you think are some of the communities that help us form this ecosystem? If you're talking, I think you're muted because I can't hear you. Are you there, Cherie?
She chatted that she's in a quiet study area.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Anthony. Since you, how about you, Anthony?
Could you repeat what you asked?
Yes, I will. Using Northern Arizona University's Flagstaff campus as an example, who are some of the others that make up our organizational ecosystem?
I can use today's like parking example as a situation example because we all got emailed that the campus's neighbors like had issues with all of our student parking, and they described it as kind of like a neighborhood. So I'd say like the bordering like stores, restaurants, and all that.
Yeah, that's an excellent example. And that happens every year. Well, not last year. Yeah, the neighbors that all border the campus who have 2 parking spaces apiece, but they can't use them because they're being filled up. Who else? I know some of you work at establishments nearby. What about those?
Cherie said Apple working with the Jack's Card team. And I don't understand why they released the Jack Card with only having it available to Apple and not to Apple and Android.
They're working on Android. It's not going to be too long.
Good. That'll be nice.
So yeah, Apple, although Apple's going to take pretty much, and same with all formats, they're going to take anybody who wants to do an app on their system because it promotes their system. But yeah, that's Cherie, a really good example. We have Sodexo, they're on campus, but they're actually a private entity. They're not a part of NAU, except that they have a contract. We have the city of Flagstaff. They're part of our organizational ecosystem. We have Buffalo Wild Wings and all the other restaurants that are privately owned outside of campus. Those are all part of our organizational ecosystem, and they love students to come in and dine and whatever else might be done that involves money. So these are just parts of the things that create this thing that we're calling an organizational ecosystem. So I love ecosystem because it means that we have these interacting parts. And over the past 4 years or so, a lot of people in the community are saying that they don't like NAU because it's changing the flavor of their town. Well, everybody gets to have their own opinion. And the other side of that is NAU is the biggest employer. NAU is also a financial engine of the whole state, but especially the northern half of the state. All the grants and studies, all of these lead to greater revenues, and many argue bring up the overall quality of life. Argue, that's an argument. So here's another, this is hard to see. I do have these PowerPoint presentations inside of our Blackboard Learn course shell, as I've said. But what's nice is that this has more examples of the economic and all of the specifics that we just talked about. So here they're using Costco as the model. I was using NAU, but it's really easy to see how the actual environment, and we're not talking about sustainability here, we're talking about the way that we do business and the places and the people that we do business, and how huge the environment of Costco is. And same with NAU. So the internal environment is as you would think. This is, so you and me together in Management 300 in room 202 or online, we are part of the internal environment of NAU. And this too is a list that goes on and on. It's quite a large list when you have quite a large organization. And if you know about NAU, you probably know that we have small campuses all over the state. And we have partnerships with organizations all around the state. So all of a sudden, our internal environment includes far-reaching communities as well as just Flagstaff. So I have already talked about this, but since this does come up on the quiz, I'd like to just talk about task environment again. It's the things outside our boundaries. And it has a lot to do with things that we have no control of. The coronavirus pandemic has showed us what the supply chain really means. And we have our major car manufacturers in Detroit shutting their doors because they can't get the microchips they need for their vehicles. So they've stopped production. That's a supply chain issue. And Arizona is building brand new, huge warehouses and also manufacturing sites where they're trying to fill that void for automobiles, not just electric, but all cars and microchips for many industries. So we're trying to fill that gap in the supply chain. But in the interim, when you think about General Motors or Ford, if you know who the two are, I think it's those two. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But when you think about shutting down production, how many hundreds of people are not getting a paycheck and not having anything to do for work? It's really mind-boggling how a supply chain issue can affect people all over the world. And then the labor market, Reese talked about it when he said, people want a higher salary. Yeah, they do. And that's a labor market issue. So is not being able to hire people with the skills that you want, having too few people to fill the jobs. That's what I see in Flagstaff's future. It's too expensive to live here, so there aren't going to be people to do the work. So it's going to be really interesting. So being able to be proactive where you can as a business person yourself is going to serve you well in your career. So what's your job as a person who is going to be out there in your career? So it's when I'm sitting here talking about the task environment and the organizational ecosystem, you might just be going blah, blah, blah. What do I need to know for the quiz on Wednesday? But really, for you and your life, being able to not just know about these things, but to take time and to anticipate what's coming and potentially be proactive so that it doesn't have a devastation effect on your company. Like General Motors, they knew there was a lack of microchips, and they probably kept those production lines, well, I would guarantee, running as long as they could. So if you can see from a pandemic, so it was a year ago where we first started, well over a year ago, where we started seeing this supply chain issue. So if you're a good leader, you're trying to anticipate what's coming. And the labor market is just one part of the task environment that you should be studying, reading about, and just knowing about. And this is part of your role as a good leader in the world.
Just a little add on that.
Sure.
In Joseph City here in Arizona, it's about probably 75 miles from here. The power plant is shutting down, and that's affecting those towns up there because so many people are employed. So they're starting to become somewhat of like ghost towns because they don't have anything to keep the towns afloat because there's no income that's coming in, and people are moving out of those towns to places that they can get jobs because of like solar panel and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And it's because people are not favoring coal as much as they used to. And the same with Page. Page was built first around the dam and the construction of the dam, and then around the Navajo generating power plant. So Joseph City, or Joe City as the locals call it, it's just a reflection of socio-political and economic and the natural environment, because people are saying we can't do coal forever. And whether that's true or not, I mean, it is a finite resource. But when President Trump was president, he didn't want to see a lot of these closed down because they were relatively affordable energy. And we have states like California buying our energy, and we're supposed to be doing a certain percentage of our energy as quote unquote clean energy, but building those systems and mostly the grid is just very expensive, and it's going to take a lot longer than anybody thought. But you're right, Vanessa. Joseph City is a great example of what can happen when the public perception and the legal and political dimension make a decision to go in a different direction. And technology, although